Australian banks say they're making major changes to the way debt can be sold to collection agencies after reports of poor practices in the industry. Here's our Consumer Affairs reporter, Amy Bainbridge. So, Amy, firstly, what were these reported poor practices?
Consumer advocates, Ros, have been extremely concerned about what's been going on in the debt collection industry. 3 months ago on the 7:30 program, we revealed that debt collectors, and one in particular called Lion Finance, was suing people for bankruptcy for debts as small as $5,000. So that meant that an outstanding credit card debt or a utility bill that had had extra fees and charges run up on it could be on-sold by a bank or a provider to a debt collector. And under Australian law, people were able to be sued through the courts for a forced bankruptcy to recover small debts. And obviously that process often comes at a time when people are already struggling financially and are very vulnerable, and going through the courts can contribute to a lot of financial stress and strain. But it also means if you're made bankrupt, you can lose any assets you have, including the family home.
So what changes are banks introducing then, Amy?
The Australian Banking Association says that it's been listening to the concerns of consumer advocates and the stories that have been brought forward by them. And they're releasing guidelines that essentially change the oversight that the banks have once they on-sell the debt to a debt collector. So, for example, it's now put upon the banks that before they sell debt, they should be reaching out proactively to their customers to try and help them with payment plans or other hardship measures. And once the debt is sold to a debt collector, the bank must be notified if the debt collector is going to start any court proceedings against that client. Anna Bligh, who's the CEO of the Australian Banking Association, says that she has been listening to the concerns of advocates.
Well, there have been some publicly aired stories and others that consumer advocates have brought to our attention that are very disturbing. Obviously, people who owe money and owe debts have an obligation to pay them back. But it's important that those companies, whether they're banks or any other company, treat those people fairly.
Groups make of the move, Amy?
About these guidelines. They are pleased, but what has happened also is that the three consumer groups and the ABA, the Banking Association, have written to the federal government asking them to change Australia's bankruptcy laws. Consumer advocates want the threshold to be able to sue for bankruptcy lifted from $5,000 up to $50,000 so that debt collectors couldn't actually start legal proceedings against somebody for a debt that's less than $50,000. The government had previously said that it was open to legislative changes, so we'll wait and see, Ros, whether there'll be further action on that front.
Thanks, Amy.